It is indeed match day. However, there's quite a lot of time between now and later on this evening when we'll find out what treats David Moyes has got in store for us in terms of formation and personnel and exactly what he's going to decide to do in his impending destruction of Stockport County. We hope. Before we get to that, there's a lot of rumours and a lot of transfer tittle-tattle, let's say, that needs to be discussed, particularly regarding West Ham and how they are going to deal with the replacement of Sebastian Haller. Now, I did my live with Gonzo 1.5 hour extravaganza on Saturday, and during that video, I responded to a few of the comments that David Moyes had said, but in particular with him saying that we'd created room in the squad but hadn't identified anybody. I don't blame you for not watching an hour and a half worth of video, by the way. However, in that, I did say that I discounted it. I didn't believe it. I don't believe what he says. There is no way that David Moyes hasn't identified, I said in the video, 4 or 5 targets. I would believe that to be the case. Let's not tar David Moyes with the same brush that we do David Sullivan, just because we think David Sullivan is sometimes will sell a player and be unprepared with who to replace him with. However, there was another comment that I missed, that I completely missed, and it's sort of come to the surface in the last few days. And it's that David Moyes has said that a solution to our lack of a striker may be to play with a false number 9. What's a false number 9? Some of you may ask, many of you won't. It's a strange one. It's strange terminology, particularly when we've been playing with an anonymous number 22. A false number 9. A bit like a pretend number 10, isn't it, really? Or a floating number 2. Which is quite disgusting. Nobody wants to see a floating number 2. Hopefully that all gets flushed away and we don't have to deal with such things. We've certainly got a number 3 who thinks he's something else. But anyway, back to the false number 9. The false number 9, as I understand it, was a phrase that was coined for Lionel Messi under Pep Guardiola. They basically didn't play with a traditional striker, a target man or a guy that runs in behind. So what they did was they basically played 6 in midfield or whatever the case may be. And a lot of the players took it in turns to work their way forward. West Ham famously and successfully, may I say, played with a false number 9 against Tottenham Hotspur. It was when Ravel Morrison scored his ridiculous goal against Tottenham and we won the game. So that's when we played with a false number 9, although you felt it was more out of necessity than desire for Sam Allardyce to do so. He was dealing with the fact that we had injuries. Now, David Moyes alluding to the fact that he may wish to do this. And when I heard the comments, I thought, what's the change, Davy boy? What's the difference, Moisty? You know? This is what we do anyway. We do already. We play with a false number 9. We don't play with a striker in the traditional sense. This is exactly why Sebastian Haller struggled in our team. Well, not exactly. There are many reasons. The reasons are numerous, and we've discussed them at length on this channel. However, the fact that we didn't really utilise a proper out-and-out striker is why he didn't work out. It's also why Chicharito didn't work out. It's why Moyes, we didn't really fancy him at Man United, did he? Certainly came to West Ham. Didn't really fancy him then either. And it's nothing new. The fact that Moyes would say, I'm going to look around the squad and look at other players and see if we can play differently without a traditional striker. He alluded to it a couple of weeks ago, where he turned around and he said, well, maybe we've got to look from within the squad to somebody who can play up front. Now, I think to look within the squad, as I discussed before, you'd probably look at somebody like Jarrod Bowen to be that false number 9. But as long as there are players in and around and close to the attacking area, they dovetail and they change position. Quite frankly, I don't mind us doing it because I think we sort of do it anyway. Which is why I don't believe that Mikel Antonio has actually really been converted to a striker. We had a discussion last season. Mikel Antonio and Sebastian Haller played apparently up front in a 4-4-2. And I said to Gio in the review, I don't think that was a 4-4-2. And in the next game, they said we're going to play 4-4-2. I said I wouldn't be surprised if we see Mikel Antonio just pulling out wide left constantly throughout the game. In a way that, and far be it for me to compare Mikel Antonio to Thierry Henry, but I'm going to, in the same way that Thierry Henry would often pull wide to the left. Would you call Thierry Henry a traditional striker? No, I wouldn't. There's an old name for it. It's an inside left. and inside left forward, let's say. He did the same with Marko Arnautovic. Marko Arnautovic was not a striker. So much so that I remember watching Match of the Day and Alan Shearer picking the bones out of his performance, saying, why isn't he running in behind? Why isn't he there? When somebody's on the byline, the wingers, they're ready to cross him. Why isn't he there on the last line defence to tap it in? It's because he's not a striker. It wasn't his instinct to do so. But David Moyes does a very good job of converting a player and playing him in a different position. As we're seeing it with Aaron Cresswell, of course, would be one of the current cases in point. But certainly, taking a wide player and converting him into a striker, no problem at all. So, I don't feel that there was anything particularly revolutionary to what David Moyes was saying, because I think he's doing it anyway, which is why when I saw us linked with Sarr of Watford, I thought, oh, well, this could work. I spoke about Sarr in the video. In the video, if you remember, if you watched it at all for that any length of time, I was noting other teams' record signings who have failed. Now, Watford's record signing was Sarr. 34 million, something like that. Hadn't really worked out. However, you know what it's like when you watch a game of football. When you watch your team play, you're always aware of who the danger men are. Not through reputation, you just sort of know it, particularly in your stadium and when you're in the stadium. When the opposition get the ball, and there's always a player and you think, oh, you know, you're always worried this guy's going to tear us apart. You can just sort of sense it. And I sort of get that impression with Sarr. Sarr was somebody when we played Watford, whilst, you know, Troy Deeney and Delafau would take a certain amount of the attention in the build-up. I certainly remember in the last time we played Watford in the build-up, I said, Sarr, I'm worried about Sarr. I think he's a really cracking player, and obviously it hasn't really worked out. But I can totally understand, not that I think it will, but I can understand why Moyes might look at a wide player at another club and think, actually, I can bring this guy in and turn him into a forward or a false, I was going to do that, I did do it anyway, a false number 9, and I can make this work. So, no surprises there at all. In terms of the players that we're linked with, I'm not going to lie and say that I know much, if anything, about any of them. The only one that I have is Eddie Nketiah. I know this guy because he's broken the record for the England under-21s. And as I've said many times, I do like to watch the youth teams play and like to see who's coming through and stuff like that. And I traditionally always have watched the under-21s. I remember watching Dean Ashton when he was at Crewe years before he came through. What a player he was, by the way. I remember watching him, funny, I remember watching him in the under-17s or 18s. What's a great player he was. Anyway, so Nketiah I know. We're also linked with, you have to excuse me, I have to read again, Daka, Simmer and Dia. Now, with these, I don't know anything about them. I've had a look. All right. Now, Daka looks a decent enough player, but you're looking at this guy and you're thinking, because I do think all these, I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Hložek and the players I've just mentioned, if our striker comes from one of those, I do think we're going to buy someone. I don't believe what Moyes said. I think it's smoke and mirrors. I think it's misdirection to allow us to try and get a transfer through. I think he knows exactly who he wants to be Sebastian Haller's replacement, and there's an order of how he'd like to get them in. The top target says no, he'll go to the second target, so on and so forth. So we've got so Daka plays for RB Salzburg. Now, the fact that it's the Austrian league, that worries me slightly. Okay, now he does look a good player, but I do always think you've got to take into account when you're looking at some of these players, the opposition they're playing against. And I'm not sure how strong the Austrian league is. And for that reason, I looked at it and I thought, okay, I wasn't, whilst I was reasonably impressed, okay, not so much really. So if I had to jettison one and initially, immediately, it would be him. Let's get on to the others, which is Simmer and Dia. Now, Simmer is the guy, I'm going to get me Spartas. You don't want to get your Spartas and your Slavias mixed up. Simmer is at Slavia Prague. I'm going to just go and check here. I'm pretty sure he is. I'm telling you, Simmer is at Slavia Prague. Okay. Hložek is at Sparta Prague. My goodness. Okay. Simmer, Abdullah Simmer, as I remember. Again, all I've done is I've looked at his goals on YouTube. Now, under normal circumstances, I'd probably look at it and say, well, maybe the Czech league isn't that strong. But it is, isn't it? We've already seen this. Look at what Souček's come in and done. Look at what Souček's come in and done. And these are obviously teams that play in the Champions League as well. It's not for West Ham to be turning their nose up at players who play in the Champions League and clubs who regularly qualify for it. So we know there's also a work ethic to these guys that play in the Czech League. They just run and they run and run. They don't stop. I think maybe it might even be about a hunger for success. Maybe they don't have much. I mean, Thomas Souček became rich by signing for West Ham. Souček became rich by signing for West Ham. Comparatively, back home, it's not like they're poor, but they have life-changing money when they sign for Premier League clubs. So I don't know if it's just this hunger to reach the next level, which the Premier League invariably in terms of money is. So I look at this Simmer and I think, okay, well, he's not bad at all. I had a little look at him and, sorry, I've lost my page here. There it is. Looks quite skillful. A big guy, a lot in the air, wins an awful lot of headers. In fact, I sort of looked at him and thought, well, hold on a second, are we dealing with Sebastian Haller? But we're not. He is more mobile. He certainly is. Probably not rapid pace, like I said Sarr was, but quick enough. Monstrously more mobile than Sebastian Haller is, which is a tick, right? I mean, let's be fair. The other one, and out of the three, Daka, Simmer or Dia, it's Dia is the one that probably caught my eye the most. I really like him. I think he's got a really good eye for goal. I think he's tricky. I think he seems to have defenders nervous, which I always think is a good thing. So I like to look at him. So realistically, I'd be pleased with any of these guys. I do think any of these guys are an improvement for us, for West Ham and the system we play, on what Sebastian Haller was doing for us. But I do think if we're going to do this, it's not. I don't just want to get somebody that's Mikel Antonio's understudy. I want to get somebody in that can push him out the team, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. I don't want Mikel Antonio to go anywhere. I want him to continue to be a hero for West Ham for a long time. But you have to say to somebody, look, if you get the shirt, if you go in and you make a good performance and you score some goals, it's yours. So which I really like. So I would say that, which brings me to the other guy, and that's Eddie Nketiah. Now, Eddie Nketiah is at Arsenal. He's running down his contract. I read a little bit into that, not too much, because if you remember, Saka was also running down his contract at Arsenal. In the end, he sold one. He signed one. Also, it does look like Mikel Arteta at Arsenal is bringing more youngsters into the team. So maybe Nketiah and his representatives might be looking at it now, thinking, well, hold on, there's a chance for us to force our way into this team. There's two reasons why he'd run his contract down. I can't imagine money's... Actually, I was going to say two reasons. Money might be one of them. I can't imagine that's a factor at Arsenal. Look at the money they chucked to Mesut Ozil. Look at what they did to Aubameyang to get him to re-sign again. They chucked big money. However, so you've got to look that he'd be thinking, well, hold on, I might be want to get out of here to try and get some first-team football. Would he get that at West Ham? That worries me a little bit when we look to bring in the centre-back from Chelsea. And then he had a phone call with David Moyes, if you remember, last transfer window. David Moyes said, I can't guarantee you, tomorrow, wasn't it? Can't guarantee you first-team football. No, I understand he can't, but I think there is a way of saying it and a way of convincing somebody. So I think if we were to get the ear of this player, and newspapers are reporting we've bid for Eddie Nketiah. There's many. Actually, it's not like Dembele. It is a completely original name. Nketiah. Whilst I think we might have bid for him and reported bid for him, there is a way of negotiating with these players. And that's say, look, I can't guarantee you a first-team place, but I want you to be a first-teamer. And if you get in, then the place is yours. I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's absolutely dynamite. He is the record goal scorer. He's just beaten Alan Shearer's goal-scoring record for the under-21s. I think he's tricky. I think he's got an eye for goal. He's two-footed. He can head. And what makes it was quite funny. I went back and looked at some of his footage, and I was looking at some of his footage. It reminded me of something. And that's quite a lot of the times I've seen his games, and I've seen England under-21s play. Stuart Pearce is the co-commentator. And Stuart Pearce loves this kid. You hear it in the commentary. I mean, no doubt about it at all. The moment his name came up, possibly even the main reason his name came up, is because Stuart Pearce was saying to David Moyes, this kid's brilliant. I have no doubt about it. Going back and listening to it again, he's raving about him. Every time he scores a goal or does a dribble or does something, saying, oh, this guy's got natural talent, this kid's really good, he's going to the top. All of this stuff. I don't think he's just saying it for the cameras. That's not Stuart Pearce. Stuart Pearce is a straight-up guy. Stuart Pearce says what he thinks. Sometimes it gets him in trouble. But he likes this kid. And I just wonder to what extent he has been in David Moyes' ear saying, sign this boy, get him signed up. Time is against us. We've still got 20-odd days of the transfer window left. That being said, we can only allow other clubs to play hardball with us so many times. We can't do a Tarkowski on it. We can't spend weeks coming back and forth with declined bids. We need to ascertain whether the player wants to come. We need to ascertain if a club are going to sell. Okay, Arsenal, you've declined that. Is it worth us carrying on bidding and saying to Nketiah, are you going to force the move through? If not, you move on to somebody else. Given a choice of all of them, Nketiah excites me a lot. Hložek excites me a lot. I'm sorry I've slaughtered the name. Then Dia. Then Simmer. Last but not least, Daka. There's some good players in there. There are some good players. I would probably take Sarr ahead of them, but going back to the false number 9, the player that's not really a striker that plays up front, maybe, just maybe, Moyes, Sully and Moyes, a cheeky, maybe, just for me, a little cheeky bid for Adama Traore.